All right, contributor appreciation. Welcome to the soapbox. My name is Jamal Thomas. This is the Progressive Soapbox. This is a contributor appreciation show. This is where we get the opportunity to say thank you for allowing me to do what I do here. And so, thank you. So, I want to thank you guys for joining us today. I'm going to let my wife explain what patron contributor appreciation is while I pull up a clip.
Oh, also, happy Memorial Day.
That's right, happy Memorial Day.
So this is our special little Memorial Day contributor appreciation show. But yes, once a week, we like to do a video where we say thank you for everyone who supports and contributes to the channel. We put a post on the Patreon platform and we ask patrons to give their topic suggestions, and we use that content to fuel today's show. If you are not familiar with what Patreon is, if you are enjoying a YouTuber or a content creator and you want to make sure that they can continue to create that content, you can be a patron via the Patreon platform. And you just say that I want to support them and make sure that they continue to do what they do, and I'm going to pledge X amount of dollars a month. It could be $1, $5, $10, whatever you're able and interested in contributing, and every dollar does help. But also thank you to everyone who supports the channel through PayPal, Streamlabs, all of the super chats. It's a great way to get your comments heard, but it is also very appreciated in as far as support for the channel. And if you are not giving monetarily, still thank you for your support. Thanks for watching. Make sure that you're subscribed and hit the notification icon down in the description box or above the description box. Supposedly YouTube is supposed to notify you, but one reason why I just had my outburst was, or my phone just had an outburst, is because I did not get a notification. So I had to go through and search for today's video. So check it out, and if you are enjoying a video, make sure you give it a thumbs up. It helps our algorithm, or YouTube's algorithm, let people know when Jamal's doing a live video. So
you did that awesomely.
Thank you. Can we shout out some people? I see Mindy Welly. I see Wendy Melly. Skeptical Mantis, that's familiar. Zox is familiar. Russian Bot. Hello, everybody. Philip Zimmerman. Hi, guys. Garden Gnome is here, of course. And P. Thanks, guys. Make sure that you're giving the video a thumbs up if you're enjoying the chat, too. Because I see a lot of people chatting, and they don't give the video a thumbs up. And I'm like, clearly you like
you're
something.
You're enjoying something because you're here.
Because you're involved. And also, you'll see me pop up during the week as the moderator for Jamal and Bob's
Political Misfits
show called Political Misfits. If you've been living under a rock for the last 5 months, it is live every weekday from 12 to 2 p.m. Broadcast here live on the YouTube, but it is Radio Sputnik 105.5 if you're here in the DC, Maryland area. And it's awesome. And sometimes I'll be there plugging away in the chat too, so make sure. And also, even if you don't get the notification for that, every weekday they will be there 12 to 2 p.m. So even if YouTube screws you and you don't get the notification, tune in anyway, because they'll be here.
We'll be here every day.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get to the first story. It was something that took place that put my mind in this mindset of, God damn it, Bernie Sanders didn't want to win. Now, when that video came out about Joe Biden, where Joe Biden basically, he says, you're not black if you're not going to vote for me. Well, that allowed Donald Trump to basically do a hit video of this. Joe Biden just says something else that was pretty wild today too, though. But he comes out with this. Now, this is Trump, and I said that Donald Trump would make these type of arguments. All right, right here. So I don't think you've seen this one, so this will be new to you. All right.
But I tell you, if you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, then you ain't black. Take a look at my record, man.
When I marched in the civil rights movement, I marched with tens of thousands of others.
He had not actually marched during the civil rights movement and kept telling the story anyway.
I come out of the civil rights movement. I was one of those guys that sat in and marched and all that stuff.
Now, his aides went back to say, look, he was in office marching for the idea.
That's not what the word marching means.
On Twitter.
I was not out marching.
If you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, then you ain't black.
They're gonna put you all back in chains.
And you ain't black.
Poor kids are just as bright and just as talented as white kids.
You ain't black. You ain't.
You ain't black.
You ain't black.
It's like a
You ain't
remix
black.
at the
Yeah.
end. You
ain't black. You ain't black.
Yeah, that was
You ain't
terrible.
black. You
I
ain't
love
black.
how they found like the 10 people who had to make America great again,
And
and they were like, "We're black, and we're at this fucking Trump rally."
But
Biden,
see,
suck it.
The beauty of this video is that he doesn't need to get the black vote. Like Donald Trump doesn't make that video in order to thinking that, oh, I'm going to have 10% of black people come. No. He makes a video in order to drive down the number of voters, meaning they're going to be young people who don't want to vote for Joe Biden, and they're going to be looking for any excuse to get out of voting for Joe Biden.
Right. They're not going
There's
to go
one.
to necessarily Trump, but
They're
they're
not
going to
going
be
to
like,
go to Trump.
he's not going to get my
but
vote.
not getting their vote is enough. I mean, think of like Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania. These states were won by very narrow margins. You have African Americans throughout the entirety of this country, but especially in those areas. If he could knock down the vote total in these groups, that's a win. That video is not to bring you on. That video is to keep you away. And notice something else that he was willing to show. Joe Biden lying about civil rights. Joe Biden lying about civil rights.
Oh, I know why that's familiar to me, because
I have been
we
saying
talked
it.
about how Bernie way back in the day needed to. But,
Right. He
but
would
this
never
just
do it.
seems like the general stuff that you do in politics. You're going to draw attention to the fact that he was lying.
But that's kind of my point. So why didn't Sanders do that? Because Trump did that. And I kept saying, Donald Trump is going to bring this up. Donald Trump is going to bring this up. He's lying about civil rights. That's a
I
big
think
deal.
if Biden had been against like Obama or Clinton,
They
would have brought it
in a
up.
heartbeat. Oh, in a heartbeat. But I guess the more interesting question is, why wouldn't Sanders do it? That's the part that I hit my head on. And it comes to me of, maybe he didn't really want to win. Like, maybe this was all a sham. I mean, because if you want to make a sham look good, and you want to have this process at the end where you can sheepdog people into the party that you know hates your guts, Sanders would be a good controlled opposition figure. He's not going to go after you. He's not going to bring up the demons in your closet. And the wild part is, not bringing up the demons in his closet is worse for Biden. That's how wild that is. I think this was out of outright cowardice. I don't think it was a sham. Like, I don't think he got into this with this notion of, all right, I'm just going to... Yeah. No. I don't think he got into this with this notion of, I'm going to do everything that's possible to win. I think he thought, all right, I'm going to make my affirmative argument, win or lose. Yeah. But I'm not going to do anything where they're going to consider me Ralph Nader or blame me for losing this race, which means I'm not going to go after Joe Biden all that hard. And I'm buddies with Joe Biden, so I'm really not going to go after him. And it's like, but that's not why you were running a race. I mean, to put this in perspective, keep in mind, Sanders had opportunities. Right here. Here was one. Nina Turner gave him the opportunity. He put a knife in Nina Turner in order to, again, protect Joe Biden, his opponent.
Co-chairs published an op-ed piece that said Vice President Biden has, quote, repeatedly betrayed black voters to side with Republican lawmakers and undermine our progress. Senator Sanders, do you agree with her? One of your most visible surrogates that Vice President Biden has repeatedly betrayed black voters?
Well, I think what Senator Turner was talking about are some of the early actions of Vice President Biden. But no, Joe Biden is...
He's a good guy. He's my friend.
He just repudiated Nina Turner for Joe Biden. That's literally what just happened. She gave him all the space in the world to basically say, look, those attacks on Social Security would have directly undermined the African-American community. When he's trying to pass a bad budget amendment that's going to adversely affect the African-American community. When he was pushing that crime bill, calling it the Biden crime bill, that put all of these blacks in prison because of disparity between crack and cocaine. Biden just came out with a quote today, or it was like yesterday, where he basically argued but blacks being disposable and being, because he was trying to justify why are you putting blacks in prison so much longer than you were putting whites, and basically boiled down to the crack cocaine disparity. But the crack cocaine disparity is a disparity of race and class, which means that his argument of, well, we said, you take crack, you never go back, meaning they were disposable. We could throw them away. They were practically irredeemable. So he still talks that way today. Sanders comes out here, though, and doesn't say any of that. He doesn't even say, also, the lying about civil rights, I'm offended by that as somebody who marched in the civil rights movement. He doesn't even do that. So it's like, how do I look at this person that gets nearly $250 million, who can't bring himself to identify Joe Biden as the avatar of the party that he screams and rails against? Basically, are you willing to fight for somebody in the way you work for yourself? And in this case, the answer was no. The answer was no. The presidency mattered less than getting rid of all of these major issues. Somebody said the other day, it's like, well, he has integrity. It's like, yeah, he has a lot of integrity sitting at home as opposed to dealing with the 500,000 people who lose their health care, or the millions of people at this point that don't have health care, the 500,000 people living on the street, or the new 800,000 people that are going to be living on the street at the end of the month, the people drowning in school debt, the people living paycheck to paycheck, which is the majority, the 20% that won't be able to pay their rent in June. That mattered less. Instead, he was buddy-buddy with this guy, the guy who's going to be the face of the Democratic Party, and the guy who said, if by some magical act, the Senate and the House passes Medicare for all, if I'm the president of the United States, I will veto that policy that has 88% support. And then he'll turn around and say, but you should vote for me. Get the fuck out of here. Get the fuck out of here. And I have to ask, why didn't Sanders do that? Is it cowardly? I just think it's cowardly. I think he didn't want to be considered Ralph Nader. And in the same way they blamed him for Hillary losing in the last time around, he thought they're going to blame me again if Trump wins the second time around. So I'm not going to do anything that's going to go too far to jostle the candidate. Missing the point. Are you trying to win or not? There's always risk entailed in trying to win it. You can't care about that part. You need to try to win it. And fact of the matter is, who do you think is stronger, you or Biden? And if you think Biden is stronger, then you shouldn't have gotten in the race. Because at that point, I don't want you running in the race if you don't want to try to actually win it. You're wasting my time at that point.
And my money.
Yeah.
My little dollar bills, y'all.
Right. And it's like you're giving this guy cash, and he takes that money and then uses weaker tactics without strategy per se. I'm just going to give speeches. I'm going to give speeches. No.
So people would just see the greater good in me.
And even when that wasn't the case, I'm still just going to give speeches. Joe Biden lies flagrantly over and over and over again. Sanders can't bring it up. Like, how weird is that? That's why I have this kind of weird feeling that, is it cowardice or were we just scammed? And I don't know which one it is, because I've never seen anybody do that.
We may never know.
I've
Gordon
never
Gnome
seen
says this is just the basics. You know, it's too many examples of him not doing the basics.
The basics
of politics. All
Yeah.
right, let me read these super chats.
Go for
Make
it.
sure if you're here and you're enjoying the content, I know it's still pretty early, but give it a thumbs up because it'll help more people know that we're live, because it's only about 100 people here.
It just aggravates me.
Oh, I get it.
Because it's like, if I ran a campaign, my thought is, I'm running this campaign to win it.
To
It wouldn't even
win.
occur to me not to win it.
And I guess my thing is, some people like integrity. Nobody said he had to punch Joe Biden in the penis.
Yeah.
But, you know,
And I got to be
hug
honest,
him.
is your integrity, it's like, is your integrity really worth 500,000? Let's take every other issue and take it off the table. Is your integrity really worth 500,000 people living on the street?
I think that's the
Is
thing,
your
too.
integrity that much?
They were big issues that you were
Yeah.
supposed to care so much about.
That this
And-
other stuff mattered less.
Yeah.
And by the way, Joe Biden is literally the avatar of that system. Meaning, all of the things that you complain about for the Democratic and Republican Party, you can even bring those complaints specifically to the Democratic Party. And the person who you needed to tie it to was Joe Biden. You couldn't even do that. They acted as if you were a radical in the race and you would never make the argument about electability, even though electability was one of the main arguments. And trying to get the black vote right there. You had opportunities. I think that's the thing that digs into me. It's a wasted effort, because it's like you had the opportunity, but you were too cowardly to actually run that race in the way that race needed to be run. And all of these big revolutionary issues mattered less to you than doing so. And if you ask Sanders, he's like, well, I think I did everything. You know, I have no regrets. You should have regrets.
No regret.
You should have a lot of regrets. A lot of people are going to have regrets, because now they're going to have to deal with him, who, look, as bad as things might look right now for Donald Trump, he's still president. And Trump tomorrow could say, you know what? Pot is illegal. Fuck it. What? If your only concern was getting elected, why not? He could change it by himself. Fuck it, I'm done. We're not going to keep putting people in prison for this. And he makes the argument, Joe Biden was putting all of these African Americans in prison, just like the Nixon administration and everything else. And these people need help. I think they're redeemable, and I'm going to let him out. He can do it. He's doing it. He's making the argument now in regards to the crime bill. He could turn around and say, well, look, we're going to make sure that everybody has health care, Medicare for everybody with coronavirus. Now, whether he was smart enough to do that or not, probably not. But should he? Yes. Especially if your goal is to get elected. And the Republican Party would go there with you because they know they can rip that shit out afterwards.
Yeah.
They can even charge the country after they get in office, especially if they take the House, the Senate, and the presidency again. So, look, the main question, honestly, is the Democratic Party more concerned with stopping policies that are 88% popular, Medicare for all, 70-something% that's popular, elimination of student debt, over 50% expansion of Social Security, increasing taxes on the rich. All of these things are dramatically popular, especially in the context of the Democratic Party. Is the Democratic Party so against those policies that their base and their party is for that they're willing to lose to Trump in order to stop policies that have like 80% approval? That's astonishing. Because that's what they're saying.
Is yes.
The answer is yes. Like, they're basically saying it is more important to us than not accept Medicare for all that has 88% support than it is to actually beat Donald Trump. And to me, that is mind-blowing. Now, they don't ask it in those terms. They ask it in this kind of voter shaming way, like, so what's your end game, buddy? What's your end game? It's like, no. The question, and the only question is, I'm not a Democrat. And so, what the fuck would I vote for somebody who's not my party? Your answer, your question is, what are you willing to do to get my vote? And if you're telling me that you're going to veto Medicare for all, then that's my litmus test. You don't get my vote by proxy. I would argue that nobody should vote for you on the Democratic side that is for Medicare for all if you're going to go against a policy that has 88% Democratic support. That basically means your political party and Joe Biden says, I don't give a fuck what you want. I don't care. I don't care. You're going to vote for me anyway. Now, for your political situation to get so callous, where a policy that has almost unanimity in regards to support, where they can just blow that off, that is something wrong. Your political system no longer works. Any legitimate, rational political system, party, that had a population that was that much in the camp for policy, they would take it on as is. It's like breathing at that point. Why wouldn't it be? Is your political system, does it pay attention to the public or not? Are these things connected or not? And if there is no connection, then fair enough. But if there is no connection, where what the public wants is not what the public gets in regards to an attentive political instrument, then maybe something's wrong with your instrument. Yeah. And maybe you need to do something different as opposed to continually pretending as if that thing is working when it's not. He's telling you that I will veto a policy that has nearly 90% support. Put that shit in perspective. That's mind-blowing.
It's not about what we want.
It's not, but that's my point. But it should be. And until it is, you shouldn't back this system. There needs to be a brain drain from our political system into this notion of this is what we want from a policy standpoint and stand behind it. That's your shield. Stay there. If they want to continue with that charade, fair enough, but the legitimacy is being drained away when you have all of these people that have literally just yanked themselves out of the process. The voter shaming, all that stuff. No, the reality of it is you need millions of people standing behind policy outside of that party where you can actually get some level of leverage in getting anything accomplished. Yes, you have dollars or pitchforks, but that at the very least gives you pitchforks. And if people stop associating themselves where they feel part of the tribe, well, at that point, they can look at this stuff a little bit more objectively and realize our political system has gotten worse. And it keeps getting worse year after year after year because we keep putting in people like this in office.
We're doing the same thing over and over again.
And just to give you one point, very on point right here. So listen to this. Now, I keep saying my argument basically boils down to year after year, you've been cowed into voting for a Democrat with this narrow focused pragmatism that they would say, all right, you have to look at this election as one specific thing, individual thing. And as you're looking at this election as an individual thing, they tell you the exact same thing year after year after year for every election, every 4 years. Missing the point that over the context of time, that person, you keep moving the bar. It gets worse and worse and worse. But because you're not looking at it from the standpoint of a context of 20 years or 30 years, and you can see, oh, the candidates are getting worse. This guy say he's going to build one concentration camp, and in 20 years, he built 20 additional concentration camps now, but it's still one less than the Republicans, so this guy's okay. Yeah. Your political system has a momentum to it, and the momentum has been decidedly to the right. Part of the reason that you've had such difficulty getting your people elected is because so many people that are people of color and people who are poor, disproportionately to the majority, by the way, don't vote. And they stop engaging in the political process because they couldn't see how the political process would materially benefit them. Meaning your penchant for voting for blue no matter who undermines the very Democrat that you're trying to get in office because you've allowed them to basically not have to offer anything that would actually entice people to come and vote for them. It's basically a race to the bottom in regards to getting the vote. When is the last time you took an affirmative vote? Meaning, when is the last time you voted for somebody because you cared about the person you voted for, as opposed to voting for somebody
else
to keep the Republican out of office? I'm making the point that your political system is being gamed by two political parties, that they have just decidedly moved it further and further to the right. And us participating in this, especially lefties who would just randomly vote for any Democrat because they're terrified of Republicans, or blacks who would vote for any Democrat because they're terrified of Republicans, or Hispanics who would vote for any Democrat. Hey, that sounds like a pattern. That sounds like a pattern. The point I'm making to you is these people who believe that blue no matter who is missing it. It is not pragmatic at all over the context of time if you have policy priorities and those policy priorities have no way of getting accomplished because the party that you're voting for doesn't support those priorities. And not just not support those priorities, if you're supporting the party is continuously moving further and further to the right, continuing to get your support with the exact same argument. It is not pragmatic over the context of 40 years as your system has moved further to the right. Not only do you hurt from the standpoint of bleeding off support, but you get ineffective leaders. Like you're in a situation right now where you actually need people to do something. And because you've eliminated all standards, all levels of accountability by just saying blue no matter who, I don't care what blue gets put up there, I don't care what he does, doesn't matter. If it's blue, I'll take him. You have blown away any notion of accountability. You want to know why your political system is inattentive to your wants? Right there. All notions of accountability from the standpoint of lefties was blown away as they bought into this argument of blue no matter who. It doesn't matter what the Democrat does. It doesn't matter how far to the right they go. If they're blue, we'll take them. It's acceptable. Yeah. I'm saying that has been a failed strategy. If your objective is to really get policy accomplished, how are you voting for a party that in no way is supporting your policies? And beyond that point, if your objective is indeed to get policy accomplished, how do you do it? And if you haven't been successful over the last 40 years, is it not time to do something else? There needs to be something as a standard of integrity from the standpoint of policy that makes you who you are. Not this relative thing that we're just whatever the Republican is, but at least worse. There's no integrity in that from the standpoint of a political party. What do you stand for? And do you stand for something that is better than just something less than what they are? Maybe you should. Maybe this notion of eliminating quality, eliminating standards, eliminating accountability has not been good for your political system as your people got worse and worse and worse. And to give you a perfect example of this, take a look at Joe Biden. Listen to what he says here, and I'm going to give you a data point immediately after.
I would repeal the $2 trillion tax cut for the folks who are making over $1 million a year because it's demonstrated very little or no growth.
Corporations,
I would insist.
Corporation, the
corporate tax rate, I'd move back to what I had proposed at 28%. Okay. What we had proposed at 28%.
Now, before Trump, that number was 33%, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, before Trump, that number was 31%. Now, understand, 31%. Now, understand what this means, though. This means that a Democrat came into office. Mm-hmm. Obama enshrined 80% of those tax cuts that Bush put in, that they said was onerous, enshrined those in the law. And after enshrining those tax cuts in the law, because they had a sunset clause on them, Trump gets in and passes his own onerous tax cuts. Joe Biden comes in and says, okay, I'm going to make it 28%, when the rate before Trump was 31%. Your political process under Joe Biden has just moved further to the right. And they're going to hail him and clap him like, oh yes, Joe Biden got a tax increase. Joe Biden just cut taxes if you're looking at it over the course of time, as opposed to looking at it over the course of one election. This is what I'm telling you. This has been the process for the last 40, 50 years, where your political process has just moved further and further to the right. And you realize, you as a lefty, because of these guys are incrementalists, the public doesn't get the opportunity to see government actually do anything positive. So when you finally get a candidate like Sanders, the public has nothing to judge him by, because in their mind space, they don't have anything to go by. You hurt yourself in so many ways by supporting this party like this. If you, honest to God, want to get policy accomplished, the way you get that policy accomplished is standing outside of the political process under that banner of policy. And you use millions of people behind you in order to make your demands of what you want as a group. That's the only way. You can call it a movement. You can call it whatever you want. I just said the new left. Because it's not a party thing. I don't care if you're a socialist. I don't care if you're a communist. I don't care if you're a Democrat or Republican. Do you agree with Medicare for all? Right. Just policy. This is not a, this person is a party thing. Nope. This is just policy. This is all we are. And if you agree with me on these policies, stand with me on this. And be intent in saying, look, that's not my party. I'm willing to let that party lose. I'm standing with these policies. That is the only way you get anything accomplished. Otherwise, your political process is going to continue to move further and further and further to the right. All of these sheepdogs were telling you to vote Democrat. It's the same process over the last 40, 50 years where they've taken cash and just went further to the right. And there's been no bar at the door. There's been nothing to stop them or to eliminate it, no accountability in that process. So they just got worse. And now people are like, why is Nancy Pelosi so horrible at her job? Because you guys kept putting her in her job. Why are they so weak and not because you've put them in their jobs? There are times where a party needs to lose in order to enshrine a standard. And those standards matter. Sometimes it matters more that the person loses in order to enshrine a quality standard of this is not where we're willing to go beyond. That person ate babies. Yeah, this is where I get off. He can win on his own. I'm not voting for somebody who ate babies. There should be standards in your process. And if there are no standards, that in and of itself should, give you cause for concern. I got it out. It was bugging me, man. Like, I just don't understand. I don't know. I understand why African Americans vote Democrat. I get it. There's a historical tether there. But sometimes that tether needs to break. And people need to look at their environment and say, okay, what has changed in my environment? And maybe based on those changes in my environment, maybe I need to do something different. Like this notion that you're going to act a particular way in perpetuity, it's nonsense.
Yeah.
Things change. And I'm saying something needs to change in this relationship. I suspect that's why Obama came out there and said, don't black people don't be asked for nothing. Do you remember that speech? You hear him? He gave that patronizing ass speech saying black folks need to care about other communities with the COVID-19 virus. And it's like, what? So what the fuck are you talking about?
Can you pull up YouTube?
It's like,
Mine are gone.
It's like, who are you talking to that is telling you that they don't give a shit about anybody else? It's just a weird commentary. Let's see. All right here. Oh, wow. Okay, I'll let you get to some of these.
Yeah, and they're so far back I can't even get them on my phone.
Right here.
Ooh, my vision is not that good today.
So that's Viva Specifico. Life specific or live specific?
Viva, that is not what that
Viva
says.
Specifico.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I love your show. Keep it creating. Oh, thank you. Also, I do not get notifications. I wish all the streams had the pre-show feed, give YouTube time to notify. Yeah, sometimes we can do it. I mean, I try to give maybe a 5 or 10 minute lead when we're doing Political Misfits. But that one sometimes is hard because I'm always at the end trying to finish up what we're doing. I'm Philip Zimmerman. You had the best show online. Oh, thanks, man. He said you two are the best show online. Uncle Brother Aisha, yes. I'm here too. Thank you, Uncle Brother. Let's see. This is broke college graduate. Joe Biden, the architect of the crime bill, stood on stage and said someone else will put black people in chains. Black people, radio, silence, shaking my head. Yeah, they didn't say anything. They just kind of accept that. Charles Calvin, where can I find a clip of nice neighborhood? Oh, right here. I put it right here. This is a
put the link in the description box.
I put the link in the description box. This is a clip that just came out today where Joe Biden is, I'll let you see it. I'll just put it in the box first. Because you might take this differently.
Let me see it?
Yeah.
Oh.
Because you haven't seen it yet. All right, I'm putting this in the description box. All right. So
all right, go ahead, read 2 more, and I want to read some.
All right, let's see. Right. All right, Charles. It's in the description box. Broke college graduate. Aisha, you're beautiful. Jamal, thanks for the show. Oh, thank you, man. I'm fed up woman. People think I'm smart because I repeat you. Thank you, fed up woman. Krillin 876, Medicare for all. Who won it? It's starting to look good now. Yeah, the public option. I mean, the thing is, Joe Biden is putting through a healthcare plan that intentionally leaves off like millions of people off the rolls.
Yeah.
Now, when Obamacare came out, the Democratic Party screamed that this is universal health care because Republicans were basically attacking it. And so they wanted to pretend as if, okay, this covered everybody. It wasn't true. 30 million people didn't have coverage on it. Mitch McConnell even at one point said, it doesn't even cover everybody. Now, think about that. Think about that. That was the funniest ever because Mitch McConnell was basically attacking the Democrats saying, your policy doesn't even cover everybody. As if he'd back it if it covered everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, I got the ones
fan.
from here. They're
Okay.
Constitutional Journal says, "Thank you for making this show. You are such a necessary voice, and I appreciate how focused you are in such a broad political landscape. You and your wife are amazing. Thank you both. Great work. Thank you,
man.
Constitution." That's the one that did the article on you
Yeah.
a couple weeks ago. I do remember that name.
Yeah.
Music Corner for Depressed People. Thank you. Says she's just donating because she appreciates us both. Uncle Brother says, "Shit, Bernie shammed us."
Yeah.
I think he's talking about blacks.
Yeah.
Biden's public humiliation of Abrams. Recent comments show he believes he got the black vote no matter what
Yes.
he does to us.
Right. Well, and think about that. Think about what that means. Like, people... Look, I know I look at politics in this kind of Herculean terms. You know, if I put a word to it. It sounds epic. I go with that. The reason... What I mean by that is... I don't think politics is about... Like, for example, how do I get somebody to do something that they don't want to do? Like, if I need this person to pass a bill, or if I need this person to push a policy through, how do I get that person to do it when there's millions of dollars pushing him to not do exactly what I want him to do? I can't shoot him. I can't beat him up. I can't hit him in the knees. I can't do any of that stuff. So how do I get him to do that? Because otherwise, you'll have a situation of Joe Biden, who's on stage, 88% support Medicare for all, and he would say, I would veto it tomorrow. Either you have some level of leverage associated with it, or it's untethered. At some point, you might have had someone that was an ideological actor, in which case you didn't have to entirely push them like talking about because they were already there with you. But the moment that goes, well, what do you have? What's your tether? What's your connection? I mean, the moment that Bill Clinton looks at you and says, you have nowhere else to go, you're going to vote for me anyway. So yes, I'm going to take this money and I'm going to pass NAFTA and Glass-Steagall and I'm going to destroy
Whatever the fuck
welfare.
else I decided I want to do.
Yes. And lefties backed him. And they continue to back him. People keep looking around it's like, why don't 51% don't vote? Why don't 50% of people don't vote? And they pretend as if that 50% is not there. I've spoken to those people who said, look, dude, I don't want to hear about that shit. It doesn't matter. They're the same.
Yeah.
Like I don't think people entirely realize how Blue No Matter Who has undermined just even what you wanted in regards to your own priorities. Donald Trump is in that office in large part because of this Blue No Matter Who shit over the past 40 years where you've just gotten rid of accountability entirely and just said, I would take whatever random Democrat they put up. That has been to your detriment. That needs to stop. Now, their argument now is going to be, but Trump is a monster. But they would have said that about John McCain.
Yeah.
They would have said that about Mitt Romney. They would have said that about George Bush. They would have, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. This is the clip that they're talking about. This was Joe Biden recently.
He said the neighbor clip?
Yeah. Listen to what he says. He's talking about drug laws. Crack cocaine disparity. Crack is basically just cocaine cut with baking soda. That's the difference. That's all.
Okay.
One is more expensive. Cocaine is more expensive. Crack is cheaper. Whites, and people with means of this class tends to do cocaine. People who are poor tend to do crack.
Is there a difference between like up your nose and in your body, like in a vein?
Like if they, yeah.
Crack is like through a needle and like people sniff cocaine.
Sniff coke. But you can smoke coke or crack or whatever. I mean, you don't have to just inject it into you. It's just different ways you can put the drug in. Now, his argument boils down to he's talking about the crime bill. And just so we can make this very clear, his bill, because he's called this crime bill the Biden bill, and you can hear him for yourself. I want everybody to be on the same page.
The bill is before us, calls for the death penalty for 51 offenses.
The first federal death penalty after declared constitutional was a bill written by me. I support the death penalty. I don't oppose the death penalty on moral grounds.
We do everything but hang people for jaywalking in this bill. Biden crime bill is before us.
All right, Biden crime bill. Look, the crack thing, I don't think I said anything wrong with it. I mean, it's cocaine.
I don't know.
The
They're saying
cocaine
we
gets
don't
cut.
know anything about crack.
Well, the cocaine
That's
gets
fair.
cut with bacon. Yeah, I don't know anything about crack. I'm just talking about the process that makes it. It starts as cocaine. It gets cut with baking soda or some other chemical like strychnine or something else. I'm just making a point that these chemicals are basically the same. the difference between them are the people who use them. One is just dramatically more expensive than the other one. So you would have people who are poor or black using one, and people who are rich who tend to trend on the white side use the other. But they had vast disparities in regards to sentencing. So one group, the African American group, or the Hispanic group, or the poor group, gets thrown away, gets the book thrown at them, gets mandatory minimums, sometimes gets 3 strikes and you outlaws, like horrible, horrible laws that got those states to put those people in for longer sentences. Joe Biden crime bill, you heard him say it himself. Whereas cocaine, slap on the wrist. Now when his crackhead of a son, crackhead of a son, drummed out the military and got a stripper banged up, oh, he got him a job making $80,000 a month. He didn't get the book thrown at him like regular people would. So it was the Biden crime bill. Now, someone asked Joe Biden about this, and Biden is trying to explain why the disparity for blacks, or why the disparity between crack and cocaine. Basically, that's asking, why are blacks in prison for so much longer than whites?
On drugs was one that Pat Moynihan, and he's a great guy. Remember, the crack epidemic came from the Bahamas. And we were told by medical doctors at the time that because it permeated the membrane of the brain more quickly, it was the crack you never come back. It was somehow fundamentally different than someone in a beautiful neighborhood like this sniffing a line of cocaine would get not automatic sentence for.
Now, I hope you heard what he said. Let's listen to it one more time because it's important.
On drugs was one that Pat Moynihan, and he's a great guy. Remember, the crack epidemic came from the Bahamas.
Crack came from Colombia, if we're talking about cocaine. But came from Colombia. There are stories about the CIA porting crack into the black community. But basically it came from Colombia. Now,
I never heard that it came from the Bahamas.
I never heard that. That was news to me. Now, but what he might be saying is people from the Caribbean was showing how it's being transformed from cocaine to crack. That's the best that I got from him bringing it from the Bahamas stuff. That's me being as fair as possible. But from Colombia. But let's keep going.
And we were told by medical doctors at the time that because it permeated the membrane of the brain more quickly, it was the crack you never come back. It was somehow fundamentally different than someone in a beautiful neighborhood like this sniffing a line of coke.
You heard that, right? So because it permeates the membranes, it is something fundamentally different about it.
Between somebody doing crack and somebody in this good Christian, God-fearing neighborhood,
that's right,
doing a little line of coke.
They said it's fundamental. Now, why is he telling us that? That's the key question. So let's pause for a moment. Biden has just said that there is a vast disparity between these two drugs, and he took something that was a drug and then talked about the other side of the drug in the terms of wealth. He didn't say wealth on the other side. He said wealth on this side about this beautiful neighborhood. I hope you understand that. And he's talking about crack is horrendous. And the other drug, not too bad. You guys are living in a beautiful neighborhood sniffing this stuff.
It's a good Christian community.
Yeah, just not
do
too
a
bad.
little line of coke here and there.
So you've heard, all right, so let's keep going.
Cocaine would get not automatic sentence for. On drugs.
Right there. Right there.
So people in this nice community won't get an automatic sentence.
Right, but
those people on the nasty crack habit,
they will.
Put them under the jail.
And he invoked class. I didn't invoke class. He did. You people living in this beautiful, nice, Christian, God-fearing neighborhood might sniff a little line of coke there. But it's fundamentally different for that crack. So those Negroes got to go, bite, you can't say that, can't say that. My bad. Those darkies, you can't say that either, Joe. Fuck. What do they call themselves now? Those colored folks.
The poor people.
Right. Because that's what we're talking about. The disparity is of class and race. Like, that's literally what it is. And so when people are like, why are blacks in prison longer? That's why. When you're looking at that crime bill.
And that's Joe's bill.
And that's Joe's bill. He named it himself. Also, you have a lot of people with a criminal justice system. Most people who are sitting in prison haven't been convicted of anything. Did you know that? Like, most of those people, or most of the trials, like 90-something% or more, just go to the prosecutor. The prosecutor would say, all right, you tell me you're innocent. And then I say, look, whether you're innocent or not, I'm going to stack 10 murder charges, a burglary charge, and a kick in the dog charge when you ran out the window. If you don't accept this plea of guilty and spend 5 years in prison. Otherwise, I'm going to keep you in for 100 years. And you're like, fuck, man, I'm innocent, but like they allow prosecutors to basically put all of this pressure on people in order to get convictions. And so many of these people just plead out. So it's not even a trial thing, because if you go to trial, you might end up being penalized from the prosecutor in the way that the prosecutor will go after you. Our prison justice system is massively fucked up. But Joe Biden was one of the creators of that system. He called it the Biden criminal system, or the Biden crime bill. So I said, going back months ago, I said Donald Trump is going to hit Joe Biden on this crime bill. I was letting darkies out of prison. Joe Biden spent 40 years putting them in.
Stop saying darkies.
Right here. This is Donald Trump on the attack. Joe Biden putting people in prison.
Thousands behind bars.
Hundreds of
Text
thousands.
woke to 88022.
Still woke.
Thousands behind bars for minor offenses. Joe Biden wrote those laws.
Every major crime bill that's come out of this Congress has had the name Joe Biden on that bill. We do everything but hang people for jaywalking in this bill.
Joe Biden's policies destroyed
Okay,
millions of black
do everything but
lives.
hang people for
Joe Biden may not
jaywalking.
remember,
That's the part.
but we do.
All right, did you see that other day? Joe Biden may not remember. Well, if you notice, Trump has been saying basically, Joe Biden didn't write that. Somebody would be like, Joe Biden said this, but Trump,
Yeah.
Joe Biden didn't write that. Joe Biden can't write that. He doesn't know that. He doesn't even know where he is. Like, Trump has been saying stuff like that over and over and over again.
He's been saying what we've been saying for a couple months.
Right. He's like, the guy's cognitively challenged. I told you, though, he was going to hit this crime bill. I predicted this like 5 months ago. I said because he's uniquely weak against him. Meaning Sanders, you can't run this video on Sanders. You can't run the black video on Sanders. You can't even run the Obama video on Sanders. Like, you might say, okay, the guy's a socialist, or the guy, somewhat Cuba. But none of this stupid stuff, all of this stuff come out just because of Joe Biden. Wait till the Hunter Biden stuff start coming out. Like, you can basically have an election with Joe Biden where you don't have to deal with policy. No, I'm being serious.
Oh, I know that. I'm laughing because it's ludicrous.
Which is the worst for Joe Biden. If we're having a policy argument with Trump, he loses because he's fucking horrendous.
Yeah.
However, if you get into a conversation about Hunter Biden, if you get into a conversation about the crime bill, basically his weaknesses, if you get into this notion of being able to suppress the black vote in some way, then you have chances. I mean, whether or not he wins by the popular vote is less important than the electoral college. But I got to be honest, Trump's chances are diminishing. If coronavirus wasn't around and it was just Biden versus Trump, I would say that Joe Biden would get his ass kicked royally. But we're in the middle of a coronavirus with 100,000 people dead. And that doesn't look good for a president, to put it mildly. So,
Yeah.
All right, so go for it.
Let's do a couple super chats before we go on. Don't forget to, if you are enjoying the show, give the video a thumbs up. This is contributor appreciation. We've got almost 200 people here, so I'll do the spiel and we'll talk some super chats and get to the first topic that I have. Okay, so yes, so today's contributor appreciation, where we do a video to say thank you for everyone who contributes and supports the channel. We put a post on the Patreon platform once a week and ask for patrons to submit their topic suggestions, and that is where we pull from to fuel today's content. If you are not contributing through Patreon, still thank you for everyone who does super chats, PayPal, Streamlabs, and if you're not contributing monetarily, still thank you. Just make sure that you're subscribed. And if you're enjoying a video and you're chatting and you're enjoying the conversation, always try to give it a thumbs up because it helps people know that we are live when we're streaming or when he's streaming. And it helps to know what kind of content is good and what you guys like. So a couple super chats just to get caught up. Dare Me to Do It says, nothing but respect to you, my brother. You two are great. Keep up the amazing work. Jamal, you really pulled me into politics and social affairs.
Aw, thank you.
American Patriot says, you are a hell of an American, Jamal. Great show. No offense, but it sounds like America. That's what I feel like. Wait, I'm not done.
Oh, go for it.
Natalie T, thank you for the super chat. Did not leave a message, but did leave a comment. Nene B says, and this is a actual question. Nene B says, prepare me. What would be the downsides of a Nina Turner presidency? I'm ready for it and can't find any overt red flags, but I don't want to feel dumb again. LOL.
I like Nina.
So is there any like negatives that you foresee?
I gotta be honest, I'm not sure. I mean, like, I haven't seen, she was a local politician when she was running, I think Ohio local politician. And she was always, I used to remember her from being on MSNBC. She was a spitfire even on MSNBC. She was always really good with that stuff. Once she started running with Sanders, that's when, at least for me, I got more visibility in regards to Turner. Turner,
Right.
if she was running how that campaign would have run, this would have been a hell of a different race. Meaning Turner putting out that ad, basically going after Joe Biden, saying Joe Biden wasn't always a friend to the black community. Sanders, oh God, you can't say that about Joe Biden. And then it flips out over it. Then she gets the question. Nina Turner wrote that article. And left to her own devices, she probably would have went further. Meaning she probably had more of a killer instinct than Bernie Sanders. I mean, a dolphin would have had better killer instinct than Bernie Sanders. But I don't know her weaknesses in this stuff. You have to see people in the political campaign. It's not like because it's like, what is Sanders if you're just sitting at home having a conversation with him versus what is Sanders in a political race? He can talk all this revolutionary talk. The moment he gets into a race, less so. And so, I don't know. I think the proof will be in the way she runs. But I like her. Yeah. I've always liked Nina Turner.
No overt red flags like she has?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Okay.
I mean, but I don't know her well enough to be able to say yeah or nay. But from what I've seen of her, I like her.
Yeah.
And I like
I think, too, a lot comes out when...
She's far more spirited.
Excuse me. A lot comes out when you start getting into an actual presidential run and campaign where you really have to dig deep into people's policies. So... maybe some things will come out. I got 2 more super chats and then we'll go to topic. Jessica W says, wants us to look up Wale Sue Me featuring Kelly Price. Go to 546, please. I wrote it down so we can look that up.
What is it called?
It's Wale called Sue Me with Kelly Price. Marcus Will says, I can't believe you didn't know about Bernie Sanders missing the vote on internet privacy.
No, I knew that part.
Why are so many Sanders media peeps ignoring this?
No, I knew he missed the vote. That was like last week, I think. Basically, there was a privacy bill where cops could look at your browser, and they ended up losing by like 1 vote, and Sanders, unannounced, unexplained, didn't show up to the vote. Now, I knew about that one. There's just a bunch of other shit going on.
All right, you want me to go through to topic suggestion?
Yeah, so I was going to do the Brianna Joy Gray one.
All right, well, let me read it.
Okay, go for it.
All right, this one comes from Bernard Jackson on the Patreon platform. Bernard says, can you talk about Brianna Greyjoy talking about Joe Biden? She's more direct than the other people who work with Sanders, but still pussyfooting about his lack of attack on Biden. So this one is a request from Patreon.
All right, talk about this so I went to her Twitter feed because she's one of my, she's on my Twitter list. And she often brings up attacks on Joe Biden. So let's see.
Thank you, Edward.
There's one right here that she just retweeted. Joe Biden vows not to raise rents on people making. Where is it? Right here.
No, it's not COVID-19.
Joe Biden vows not to raise taxes on anyone making under $400,000. Can't raise taxes on those making under $400,000, but we can't make college free for those making under $125K. Basically, Joe Biden wants to have means testing in regards to sending people back to school, like basically saying, I'm going to get rid of your student debt as long as your price is under this much. Now, the problem is, if you
as long as your income is under? Okay, yeah. You said price.
The problem is, if you are in California, if you're in New York, if you're in Washington, D.C., that $125,000 is middle class, and barely that. I mean, I guess I'm making the point that these salary requirements are going to change based on country to country, state to state, but they're different. I mean, if you don't have, and this is a stupid standard anyway. I mean, this is just going to be used as a way to exclude people from the process. Otherwise, they wouldn't be there. Meaning, if the entire point was to get as many people as you could under that process, then you wouldn't have that bar. Yeah. Right. The rich have already paid for their kids to go to school. If I have $1 billion, if I have $20 million, my kid is already paid for. It's not something that the person is going to be plagued by. The people who we're talking about are either middle income or maybe a little moderately higher than middle income that would basically need those people to be paid for. And I got to be honest, I don't care if the rich get their schooling paid just like we are. I mean, we do it with public school, right? We have people who go to public school and no one says, yeah, your kid can't come here unless you give us X. Nobody does that. That would be bizarre as all hell. It's the same idea. The people who are very wealthy, they can pay for whatever school they want to, or they can go to a public school or public university. I don't give a shit, and I don't know why anybody would care. The number of those people are going to be minor, just by definition. We're talking about a 1%, and the 1% is what, 400,000 a year. So we're talking about a tiny, tiny, tiny segment of the electorate that we're talking about, where people are like, no, man, I don't want to pay for those. Get out of here. It doesn't matter. They're using that to exclude you, not them. They can already pay for their education. This is everything to do with you. And so it's like people, Pete Buttigieg was doing this. And he was like, and then you have to look into the details because they're probably going to have some other kind of process to fuck people over. So, yeah. And then you have to even believe that Joe Biden is going to do it.
Yeah.
Which I don't. Like, it's these task forces. Here's another one that you put out. Where Joe Biden finds Bernie Sanders donors elusive. Now, the reason, so Sanders, how many people do you believe that were Sanders supporters turned around and donated to Joe Biden?
Well, wasn't this one of the questions that you guys had this week on your little question segment?
I don't think so.
How many Bernie Sanders supporters
like,
turned
so
around
all of,
and
because there was
Joe Biden?
Huge numbers of people who were Sanders supporters were giving Sanders so much money that he was making more money than anybody else in the race.
You want a percentage?
Yeah, what percent?
I thought it was like 40%.
Okay, 40%.
So 40% of Bernie supporters
donated
turned around
money
and
to Joe
backed
Biden.
Joe Biden.
No, donate money to Joe Biden.
Oh, okay. You mean after Bernie dropped out?
Yeah. You still going with 40?
I feel like it's low. Let's say
you said 40.
30%. 3%?
3%.
That's what I meant. I just
3%.
got confused with the extra zero.
So when they say Joe Biden finds Bernie donors elusive, well, that's a fucking understatement. 3%. Now, I don't know why any Sanders supporter would donate to Joe Biden, even if they vote for him. I'm going to be Joe Biden. Joe Biden says, when I'm asked if he's prepared to govern as progressive, I do not support Medicare for all. I will not support Medicare for all, but I do support making sure that Obama is around. Obamacare is around with a public option. He continues on CNBC. Now, this is what she's talking about. And to me, again, if you honestly want to get policy accomplished, letting this fool fail is the way to do it. It's not so much that you're going to win outright, but you're not going to win anyway. He doesn't support your policies. That entire party was willing to lose to Trump in order to stop you. So fervently so that each and every one of them was willing to go to a brokered convention if it meant stopping Sanders. And all of them knew that the brokered convention meant that they were going to lose to Trump, because there is no Sanders supporter that was going to turn around and vote for Joe Biden or whoever they chose after that. Yeah. They didn't care. That's like, man, lefties need to ingrain that. They didn't care. So when they look at you and tell you you have nowhere else to go, they were perfectly willing of going there if it meant stopping you. How do you beat an opponent like that? You're not on the same page. You guys are not looking for the same policy interests. It's time to start regarding that honestly. And regarding that honestly, being willing to let somebody who would perch their lips to say, not even lie to you, but perch their lips to say, look, I'm not even going to go. I'm not going to go for a policy that got 88%. You understand that whatever policy Joe Biden is pushing, Republicans are entirely going to be against regardless. This is not a situation where they're going to say, okay, well, you didn't push for Medicare for all, so we'll do this public option. They tried to get rid of Obamacare, 40-something votes? And you think they're going to let this fool pass this policy? And beyond that point, how is Joe Biden, even if he does get the ability to pass it, you realize that this is his starting point. His starting point is Obamacare. And a public option means it can only go further to the right. Meaning it's starting the negotiation downward from here. This is what's so like, it's like, I don't buy this because I know he doesn't care about this. And yet you have some people who buy this. If you are telling me that a policy that has 88% Democrat support, and you are a Democrat, and you are against that policy, you're basically telling me that you don't want my vote. Because that's me understanding that the political process is fundamentally broken when a candidate is running and saying, you guys can go fuck yourselves with a policy that you guys agree with almost unanimously. Now, that's my point of contention. But let's hear Biden himself basically tell people to go fuck themselves.
Prepared now to see.
This is the article that Breonna Joy Gray was referencing.
Say you're going to govern as a progressive and enact programs in the mold of Sanders and Warren. And if so, what does that say to either moderate Democrats or independents or even some Republicans dissatisfied with President Trump?
I'm prepared to say that I have a record of over 40 years and that I'm going to beat Joe Biden. Look at my record. The fact is that some areas that I think, for example, I think health care is a right, not a privilege. I do not support Medicare for all. I will not support Medicare for all, but I do support making sure that...
Just so we're clear, if you don't, then that means then it's not a right. That means it's a privilege.
Right.
If you don't support Medicare for all, then that means those statements are contradictory. You can't say, I think healthcare is a human right, not a privilege, but I'm going to leave, millions of people without healthcare on my healthcare plan.
So it's not everybody's right.
It's not everybody's right.
It's just the right for people who can afford it. Also, just to clarify, I've had like 3 people either send something or mention people joking, saying that he's saying, I'm going to beat
Oh, he's not saying beat.
Joe
He's saying
Biden.
B. B-E.
You
I'm
know,
going to be Joe
that
Biden.
slurred cognitive decline
Yeah,
speech.
he says, I'm going to be Joe Biden, meaning I'm not going to pass Medicare for all. I don't
gonna
believe in
be who
Medicare
I've
for all.
always
I'm going to be
been.
Joe Biden.
Yeah,
Right.
I don't think he said I'm going to beat.
Yeah, Joe Biden.
He's got plenty of other.
Yeah. He fucks up enough
Yeah,
where you can find
we
other
need to
stuff.
put that in there.
But that just tells me you don't want my vote. That's what that tells me. Brianna Joy Gray, that's what she was referencing. Because if you're saying 2 things, you're saying, Joe Biden is having a hard time getting that fundraising money. That's peculiar. And then you turn around and hear Joe Biden said, I don't care. I'm going to be Joe Biden, and I'm going to, tell people, kick rocks about Medicare for all. I'm going to do me. And those Bernie voters says, well, do you? Why would I give money to that? Yeah, 30%. I think those were suckers. But that's an astonishing video. Like, I don't know. Like, I can't be insane on this, right? Because you would have vote shamers, and they would ask you, like, are you going to vote for Biden? And it's like, is Biden going to pass Medicare for all? And it's like, well, yeah, but aren't you scared of Trump? It's like, isn't Joe Biden scared of Trump? Like, yeah, but you're okay with him losing? Is Joe Biden okay with him losing?
Yeah.
I'm going to get closer every time. Is he okay with him losing? Like, it's going to be like that. Like, because I'm trying to make the point that argument goes both ways. And lefties always take the argument in the weakest way possible. Like, oh, they keep shaming me. No. You should be proud about that. That's not your guy. They'll be like, are you going to let him lose? Yes, I'm going to let him lose. Is he backing my policies? No. Then he's going to lose. I'm going to dance on his grave. Aren't you scared of Trump? Well, that Trump thing is on him.
Get a dance on it.
It's not on me. I'm talking about his political grave when he loses.
Oh, okay.
I'm making the point that if Joe Biden wants to get those votes and he wants to get a unity of a party, that's not magic. Medicare for all, expansion of Social Security, taxes on the wealth. It's very clear, right? Those things have the majority support of the population, not just of the party. So from my standpoint, tell Joe Biden, go do his goddamn job. If he wants my support, go do your job. That's where I'm at. I'm thinking this way for all of these guys who are in office. Now, when people don't say go do your job and they just vote for that person, well, that person has a tendency to lose because a lot of other people like me said that person should do their job, not just kind of fuck around, and that person loses. If Joe Biden wants to win, it's straightforward. It's very straightforward. How do you not support a policy that has 88% support and then bitch that people aren't giving you money?
I'm going to be Joe Biden.
I'm going to be Joe Biden. I'm just look.
I'm going to be Joe.
It is a weird argument to make to me that rational human being, rational man, random rational man, average intelligence, and you say, look, the Democratic Party has a policy that has 88% support. And he says, okay. They have another policy that has 70% support of the Democratic Party. He says, okay. They say Donald Trump is the apocalypse and that he's going to end the world and he's going to get rid of Social Security and Medicare. He's going to rip the planet in half and we may never have another election again. He says, wow, that's terrifying. And you say, yes. And then you say, should they accept Medicare and Social Security expansion, something that has 80 and 70% support, in order to stop the apocalypse? And the rational man would say, well, yeah, of course they should. I mean, after all, if they're trying to have a unity, and they want to stop the guy, that's a big challenge. That's a big fucking deal if the guy's going to destroy the world.
Nope.
Accepting a policy that has 88% support should seem like the most rational thing in the world to do if it means stopping the guy who you're saying is the apocalypse. That's rational human being.
Nope.
But that's not how we're working here. We're working with Joe Biden. That's fucking astonishing that they do that. And then they're shocked the shit that people don't vote for them. Sam Cedar said he'd vote for a can of soup. He's like, he'd vote for a can of soup. How sad is that? There's like no standards in their process. This guy is barely incoherent, and the only thing they could ever talk about is relative to Trump. Relative to Trump, he's least worst. He's the least worst. And then you have Sanders people trying to shuck and jive.
But show me how he stands on his own. Like if he was going up someone who was actual contender in regards to their policies, how would he measure up? Not
another one.
What is that?
This is Breonna Jorger again. So, what do black women want? Black community priorities have shifted. Some black women in 2019, criminal justice and policing reform are the number one issue, separated by a mere 1% of affordable health care. Congressional Black Caucus Institute takes core civic cash, boots policies that help private prisons. Does this apply to corporate Democrats who argue that single-payer health care is pie in the sky while ignoring that health care is a top concern for black Americans? Does this apply? Does it? So when I make this argument about Medicare for all, and I make the point that it directly helps the people at the bottom of the income scale because those people no longer have to be labored and with this massive tax that, you know, this regressive tax, right, burdensome tax. And I make the point of saying, if you indeed are backing the African American community, maybe you would pick a policy that the majority agree with. Even in South Carolina and those states where Biden won by like 30 points, Medicare for all still won. Like, that was the wild part. Sanders' policies was winning, but they would choose him because they were choosing on electability, not on policy.
Yeah.
My point is, if African Americans, if indeed, don't put a black woman in, well, I don't care if you put a black woman in. I don't care what you're doing there, then that's it. I care more about policy.
Yeah, as opposed to the color of the person.
Yes. And if you're putting in policy that directly helps my community, fair enough. But that's not what's happening here. So, yes, marginal at some point needs to lose.
All right, I got a couple super chats before we go to the next one to make sure I'm not missing any.
Yeah, but Breonna Jorger has been very strident in going after the Democrats and Joe Biden, whereas Sanders have pulled away. Sanders even put a knife in her to some degree. She has been very clear that, look, this politics that we've been doing just doesn't work. And she's been more aggressive in trying to stand under this notion of, no, if you're going to win, you need to get my vote, not just giving it this vote. And there needs to be, right, there needs to be things that you earn. And I would suspect that she knows what went on behind the scenes in the campaign and that type of stuff, whether she could talk about it or not. So she may have feelings about that stuff. But I agree with her. I mean, people are basically telling me that, hey, you have to sheepdog and you have to support the Democrat regardless of what it is. Yeah, but I have policy ideas that I want. Yeah, we'll get to those at some point.
Yeah.
It's like, but when? Oh, how many decades do I have to go before I get this policy? It's that type of nonsense. But that's sheepdogging. Now, the reality of it is the way you get your political agenda accomplished is you give your vote to the person who represents your interests. And you do that unflinchingly. You either have an affirmative case for a thing or, a thing of regressive going against the other guy, reflexive. We've been against the other guy for so long that these guys have just ran straight to the bottom. And that needs to stop. And it's no magic door to get out that process. I don't know another way out of it outside of saying you have dollars or pitchforks, and maybe you need to assert pitchforks.
Yeah.
And pitchforks is standing in the millions saying we're out this process and we're putting emphasis and weight on it to make certain people lose, or for that matter win, based on whether or not they support us or not. Regardless of the dollars things, the dollars is there in order to get these guys elected. I mean, 90% of the races are won by the South, the most cash. And so if you have pitchforks where you can keep those guys out of office, that is a power. It's a grim one. But me having the ability to say, you can't win without my consent. And you're talking about this from the standpoint of a group who are backing certain policies. That is leverage. That's strength in a political process. And that's something that needs to be built. Unfortunately, you can't build it overnight. Oh.
Excuse me. Sorry. My allergies are acting up. Maggie Smith says, I'm just visiting this planet. Maggie. Samantha Mosley says, look at his record. Translation, I will say anything. Talking about Joe Biden and it's
a flagrant liar.
Yeah.
I mean, flagrant liar. We showed the video early on where Joe Biden failed out of the campaign. He was the pleasurizing of speeches, of saying he was in the civil rights movement when he wasn't. And that one burns more. That one burns more for some reason. I feel like it's a sacred thing that you're lying about, and you're looking black people and lying about it.
Kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
And that's kind of one of the things where I think African Americans, black people are going to see that and be like, okay, well, he's really for me. Like, I want something to identify with. So if you're saying that you were there and you took part in that even back then, and you fought. Yeah. I mean, that was a fight, and you were on the right side of the fight.
History,
that's a big deal.
And you find out
and
he was lying. Yeah, he was just lying. And the guy who actually was never brings it up.
Yeah, you weren't.
That's what I mean. Like, how weird is that? Like, Joe Biden is basically lying about civil rights. Sanders was there with King, had the photo, and I have nothing to say about it.
Well, they say I did it, bought the t-shirt. You never heard that? All right, we got another one. Number one. Can I read that one out loud?
Yeah.
Okay. So Maggie Smith, she's here in the super chat today. Also, shout out to Maggie because she was the one that got
named the show
Political Misfits.
That's
Maggie,
right.
I haven't forgotten. I am still sending you a t-shirt. Maggie Smith says.
Oh yeah, that's right. We just got the Political Misfit t-shirts.
What the heck?
What's her size? I can send her.
I'm not putting that girl business out.
Well, I can send her.
We'll work on that.
Yeah.
You can't give her somebody else's. Maggie, we're going to get you your own shirt, girl. Unless you want a coffee mug like the one that he had on the show. But that's a whole other episode. Yeah. Okay, so Maggie says, I would like for you to talk more about the recent release of UFO files. I don't think we will have disclosure, nor do I want to see that since our government is so corrupt.
Yeah.
I always wonder about the timing of such things.
Me too.
I also would like for you to have Stacey Wright on your show. She's the director, Stacey Wright. She is the director of the Phoenix MUFON, the best MUFON on the planet and perhaps the universe. She probably remembers me. I was at her house for lunch with Charles Hall.
Oh, great. Oh, really?
She has had some.
She had lunch with Charles Hall?
Says Charles Hall and Kathy Martin.
I know who Charles Hall is. So, did they talk about the Great Whites? Oh, go ahead.
You know, that's not going to be in this.
Go ahead.
She's had some amazing experiences because of the great speakers they have had over the years. So she wants you to talk about UFOs and try to get Stacey Wright on your radio show.
I would love to try to get Stacey Wright on the show. So, the recent disclosures.
Maggie says she has her email.
Okay, so the Pentagon came out. So, you remember the New York Times comes out with a bombshell story, basically, that we've been studying UFOs. And from there, it hit all of these other papers, Politico, Washington Post, et cetera, et cetera. Multiple videos were being released by To the Stars Academy, or Academy to the Stars. To the Stars Academy. It's To the Stars Academy of Arts and Science. And as they were releasing these videos, people were like, well, where did these videos come from? It was the Nimitz, Tic Tac, and there was one called Go Fast. And these were on the various boats where they were getting radar or they were getting visual sight on those various UFOs. Okay. The pilots came out and gave testimony on the various television shows, meaning this wasn't like, okay, we found a file somewhere that we don't know it's true. It's like, we found a video, here's the pilot that was in the video, here's the boat, here's the people. It was
And the pilot came out.
The pilot came out.
Agreed, right?
Right. The pilot came out, multiple pilots, and it explained it. Luis Elizondo, who ran that program, comes out and also explains it. Additional information starts to get released in regards to the ATIP program that the government was running. Now, keep in mind, our government has been studying UFOs for decades. And so it's comical that they're putting this out in this kind of small package of, just for this last few years, the government's been doing bullshit. And so I question the timing of this stuff. Grant Cameron was on my show, and Grant Cameron had predicted this stuff months in advance. Like, that this stuff was supposed to come out like a year before it actually came out, with Hillary Clinton losing it, kind of threw everything into a whack. But, like, this stuff we've been studying this stuff for a while. But whatever. So, recently, the Pentagon, and people were questioning the veracity of the videos. Like, well, where did they get these videos from? Are these videos legit? And the Pentagon originally was like, no, we don't know where these came from. But the Pentagon eventually came out and says, okay, it's us. Now, I did that story almost like a year ago and said these were from the Pentagon. The Freedom of Information Act shows that they were from the Pentagon. But people still didn't know. However, when the Pentagon puts out their videos, all of a sudden, everybody on social media is like, oh my God, they're aliens! And there's like, aliens exist, debate me. People were saying shit like that, right? It's like, prove me wrong, I'm saying aliens exist. Now, I've been making this argument for years. I validated those things for like a year ago, and all of a sudden now everybody has a story like, oh my God, the Pentagon is showing alien videos. Because at that point, that's your government. And the military apparatus in your government that spends like $1 trillion a year has just come out and identifies, yes, we've been engaging something that we don't know what it is. And in engaging it, it looks like a technological device that was flying under intelligent control. And I could see it with my own eyes for multiple minutes as we were in the sky. And there was a consciousness effect where I felt like it was engaging me on a consciousness level.
They said that too?
Yeah. The pilots even talk about that. The files that were being released. Popular Mechanics did this long run-through of the stuff that they were studying, stuff on like quantum mechanics, thermodynamics. They were getting into like invisibility, warp drive.
Oh, we did read that.
They were getting all of
Okay.
that stuff. It was utterly fantastic. And they were talking to the pilots because they talk directly to the pilots on that stuff. So the fact that the Pentagon released it upped the hysteria about, oh my God, what?
It's more legitimate
it's
as
more
opposed
legit.
to coming some random source that
Right.
we might not necessarily believe. We believe the government.
We believe the Pentagon in this. So Academy to the Stars comes out and says the United States military is now working with us, an organization that's dedicated to UFO stuff and dealing with UFO materials. Because To the Stars Academy said that they're going to have materials that are going to be released.
Right.
And that they're studying those materials to come up with chemical properties in order to try to build and applicate technologies from those materials. Now, in doing this, the military joined a contract with To the Stars Academy. Think about how weird that is. To the Stars Academy is a UFO organization. That's literally what it is. It's literally there to study UFOs and to publish that stuff as arts and science and to get people supposedly reared into this idea of aliens and that there's some things out there that people are going to have to be able to deal with. According to Tom DeLonge. Tom DeLonge doesn't say that anymore. They keep him shut up about that. But
Yeah,
Tom
because he
DeLonge,
used to say some pretty scary
he used to
stuff
say some
about
threat
baby,
stuff. Like there's some threats out there.
aliens eating my
Yeah,
babies
the
and
bad
stuff.
alien theory. So Tom DeLonge will say stuff like that. But basically, they're putting out videos and whatnot to give their point of view of what the universe looks like in regards to the cosmic aspect of this. Now, understand, all of these guys are spooks. The only thing that Tom DeLonge knows is from other spooks. And so the people who he sends out, like Luis Elizondo or these other guys, they're putting out a narrative, which makes me somewhat distrustful of this narrative because they're using the one thing that is going to be able to get them a ton of money to make this work. There's a threat. Meaning what Tom DeLonge and the way they talk about this stuff in language, there's a threat aspect to this behind it that is basically going to go towards militaristic pursuits. I can guarantee you that's how our country works. That stuff goes into military and then eventually they find some kind of public option for it. But basically, anything that they learn is going to find military pursuits. You don't believe me? Why did they create a joint contract with the Army if that's not where they were going? Because that's exactly what they did. So an organization that is specific to UFOs has joined with the U.S. military. That's mind-blowing. I hope you understand what I mean. Like, can you imagine, 10 years ago, if I said, babe, I had this dream that an organization, a business, a UFO business in the United States was going to be working with the military on materials for, battle materials and whatnot. You'd be like, get the fuck out of here. Because it's so outlandish, right? And yet, that's where we are. And so if there's a bullshit organization, I don't think the military would be working with them in this way. So there's something there, whatever that something is. But basically, with the Pentagon releasing this stuff, people took it a hell of a lot more seriously. And then these other questions about, okay, what else do you have out there? Unidentified is coming out with a different series. That one was a blockbuster because it started drawing all of these people as to the scene. You have congressmen who've been asking for debriefings, meaning, what are the quantum mechanics? What are the, because in order for this to work, you would need breakthroughs in all of these different areas that are beyond our physics. Luis Elizondo says they have those equations, even if they can't necessarily build the ship because they don't have the materials or the technology to do it. But his thing is, we were able to model how these ships fly. We were able to model what the various ships do. He says, I don't want to deal with what's in it. And it's like, well, but wait a minute. How can you not? How do you determine threat if you don't have some idea of what's controlling the ship? It's that type of stuff. Then there was another report that recently came, I think it was maybe last week, about collisions or a threat of collisions. They were concerned that some of the flying phenomena would engage their airplanes and hit their airplanes. Well, the catch is they've never brought up the Nimitz, Go Fast, or the other one in these reports. So it's like, wait a minute, why is those missing? Yeah. I mean, you just had a pilot watching a UFO for 5 minutes that he said was a piece of technology that took off as if he was standing still, and you didn't put that into your error reports? So the UFO field has been amazing. I mean, these guys are still saying this year something big is going to get released. I don't know. It's what I love about it is that I was early on this, and my argument was always I can make this argument just based on what we know. I don't even have to go beyond what I know in order to make this case of it's either us or it's not. And both of those things are phenomenal because at the very least we can establish that something was there.
Yeah.
So just staying there for the moment is mind-blowing, either phenomena or either side. I would say, though, that we don't know how contact works. Meaning we make assumptions about how other things are based on how we are. And it may not be that way. Like what we consider contact may not be physical at all. People can have, like, for example, we don't even know that our consciousness is entirely in our heads. Like, for all we know, our form is to some degree consciousness being manifest kind of in the way you manifest your form in a dream state. Like, I'm making the very basic point that when we are engaging something that may have a different experience in our reality than we do, because they may have advanced a little bit further along in regards to what this is, may have ways of interacting and communicating that reaches these subtle levels that we don't necessarily engage with on a normal basis. Like when people are in meditative states and they're filing themselves like OBEs and they're engaging things outside of their bodies and stuff. We don't know how this stuff works, but other civilizations might have been perfectly okay with studying that. Like, in fact, they might have had civilizations where consciousness was just something that was studied as if it was anything else. And they just considered it a science like anything else. And they were able to grow and evaluate or propagate their thoughts. Maybe they could propagate their thoughts anyway, so it was just kind of a natural bias. Like, we don't know how these things or these cultures will organize themselves. We just know that they are. It's a fascinating topic. I mean, the moment that you establish the UFO part, the other shit comes in. Like, how do they justify the moment that you say, okay, yeah, there are UFOs in our skies, great. And then the person who says, I knew I was abducted. That guy put that thing in my ass. How do you say that guy's wrong now?
It's a whole other conversation.
It's a whole other conversation, yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's a whole nother conversation. So that's...
Marcus Will says the UFO stuff is just a distraction to get more money.
I don't think it's a distraction, but yes, both things can be true. It doesn't have to be one or the other.
Yeah, because some people are like, well, why are we talking about this when there's important things going on? Multitasking,
but all of it is important.
We can have multiple conversations.
Whatever you want to think about the UFO topic, you must admit that would be one of the most momentous and honestly, potentially dystopian things that happen to our society that I have to be honest, I'm somewhat terrified of. Let's hear Biden for the moment talk about getting rid of Medicare for all.
Prepared now to say you're going to govern as a progressive and enact programs in the mold of Sanders and Warren, and if so, what does that say to either moderate Democrats or independents or even some Republicans dissatisfied with President Trump?
I'm prepared to say that I have a record of over 40 years and that I'm going to beat Joe Biden. Look at my record. The fact is that some areas that I think, for example, I think health care is a right, not a privilege. I do not support Medicare for all. I will not support Medicare for all, but I do support making sure that Obamacare is around with a public option for those who can't afford, those who qualify for Medicaid and they don't get in their state, they would be able to buy, they would be able to be automatically be enrolled in the public option of Medicare. That would, but I do not support a, forgiving debt loan for every single solitary person, no matter where you went to school. But I do support the idea, if in fact you have a student debt as a consequence of going to a public university and your income is under $125,000, it should be forgiven. I do believe that anyone going to school that in fact goes to a public university and or a community college, they should be able to go for free if income is under $125,000.
They should be able to go to free, period. Look, I don't care if 1% of the population goes to school on public dime. Why would I care? I mean, that's basically what we're talking about, just a top 1%. And making this, like, bitching about the 1% thing, it's a way of eliminating people off the roster. That's all this is.
It's to exclude people.
Yeah, it's just to exclude people. And what's going to end up happening is you're going to create a contradiction or a conflict between people who are, let's say, 120,000 who get under it, and people who are 126,000 that don't. Don't their kids should go to school too? And how are you going to say that this guy who's $5,000 less shouldn't apply? As if these guys are drastically different in regards to statuses. Like, which it's just a weird thing to put in it. And it's soothing to the ear of people who might be like poor. But think of it this way. When somebody says, I want to make sure that person who flips french fries gets $15 an hour. And it's like, well, I make $15 an hour. Why is that person going to make $15 an hour? As opposed to, maybe I should be making more.
Yeah.
Those are different talks. Like, it's one thing of recognizing that person has a life and that person should get paid for life. That company shouldn't be able to open if that person can't, if they can't pay people a decent wage. By the same token, maybe I should be making more money also. I guess my point is, this argument is kind of like that, where it's like, well, 120,000, you're creating stress between two classes. The class that's kids can go to school for free and get their debt removed versus the people who can't, who may be close to that other class. That's fucked up. It's like, why are you creating that contradiction? Like, you're creating where part of the society is going to be pissed off at the other society right off the bat. Just pay it all off. The rich aren't suffering from this. This is something that the poor are suffering from. And I don't give a shit if the rich can send their kids to school for free. They are also citizens of this country just like anybody else. If they want to send their kids to public school, I don't care. Yeah. If they want to get their mail delivered, I don't care. I don't care.
All right, I just got one more kind of lengthy one, so I'm not going to read all of the add-ons to it, but just really quickly, I don't know if it's some kind of conspiracy theory kind of going on or if this just media throwing some stuff out there, but yeah. All right.
Now, for some reason, I have something called Crime Bill here, but I don't know if that was something we were already talking about.
I think that's it.
Okay. All right, guys.
We're done.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys are going to see me tonight. Maybe. I'm not done. 4 videos today. You all have a happy Memorial Day. He's a beautiful tell us the conspiracy. I guess. Like, share, and subscribe.
Have a good week.